And
Yeah.
so now I'm hoping that these kids go to the store and they say, oh, Sweetie created that, or that was GMO. We should probably buy this. But they have the language to be able to say the difference in certain sugars and the difference in protein, the difference in organic versus GMO. And people are telling me all the time, well, kids don't talk that way. I go, well, mine sure do.
Welcome to the Kids Eating Broccoli podcast, where we believe that raising healthy kids shouldn't be complicated. Our mission is to inspire 20 million families worldwide to take the steps to raise the healthiest generation in our history. We'll interview some of the world's leading experts in nutrition, human potential, and children's health, as well as extraordinary chefs and foodies to gain insight into simple, fun, and creative ways to introduce natural health into homes across this planet. All right, today we're joined by Dr. Kimberly Carpenter. She's dedicated to empowering people to reach their full potential. She started practicing in 2004 after graduating from Logan College of Chiropractic. She opened Awaken to Wellness Center in Louisville, Kentucky in 2005 and still practices in her family wellness, non-insurance dependent practice to this day. In addition to creating the Awaken to Wellness Center, Dr. Kim founded the Live Well Warriors in 2016. The Live Well Warriors is an empowerment program dedicated to helping families transform their lives by helping them eat, move, and think well. Her first book series, The Adventures of the Live Well Warriors, is an empowering educational tool to help children learn the importance of eating, moving, and thinking well, all while living in a sustainable way. We had a wonderful conversation on this episode, and I hope you enjoy it and get as much out of it as I did. All right, here we go.
All right, so welcome to this episode of Kids Eating Broccoli podcast. Today, our guest is Dr. Kim Carpenter, and she's going to share with us some really cool stuff that she's up to in the Live Well Warriors. But I'm going to let her tell us a little bit about that. But first, Dr. Kim, I'd love to start with your background, how you got to be doing what you're doing today, and tell us a little nutshell of what you're up to.
So thanks for having me. I am Dr. Kim Carpenter, and I'm a chiropractor, and I practice in Louisville, Kentucky. And I have a family wellness-based practice, and we're all about empowering people to live well through the nervous system. And I am the founder of the Live Well Warriors, and it was a program that began to empower this next generation to live healthier than what we're currently seeing. And I developed the program, and it's based around 4 children's books. And each of the books has a different theme about how people eat or move or think. And I developed it when I had children, and I was looking for resources and materials to help my kids. You know, one of them was a really anxious child growing really naturally, through healthy living, but very anxious. And I couldn't find a lot of tools to educate my kids about the foods that they eat and in a format that was friendly for kids. Or I found tons for moms, but not for the kids. And, so I started to dig deeper. And finally, I just wrote my own books. And so along with my children, we became the Live Well Warriors. And so we created an entire series to empower other children to handle the way that they think, or anxieties or feelings that they have and don't know what to do with it. And then we built it with food, because most people where we were going had no idea about healthy eating. And then we dove into sustainability and environmental issues, because again, people had no idea. So this really started as a result of being a practitioner, combining that with being a mom, and realizing that people need to know in a different format. And if we want the next generation to be different, they need to be educated and taught at a very young age how to live, so they don't have to undo all of those patterns that so many people have to do now.
Cool. So you wrote the books with your kids?
They were young at the time, so they helped me. They definitely so there's 3 main characters that are the warriors. And so there's Zoe and Rowdy and Rex, and my kids did play a role in determining their characteristics. And each of the characters has some quality of my kids and some warrior strength that my children too have. So they did play a role in helping me design the way they looked and the habits that they have. And and the, one rides a skateboard, and that was cool. So they loved it. But they really liked playing a role in the bad guys. They liked playing a role in like who they defeat and what Trashy might look like, or what Gmo might look like, or what Sweetie might look like. And they loved that aspect of it too. So they had a hand in it. I wrote them, but they helped design the whole energy around it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And so what did you find? You mentioned with your daughter that, you were raising her healthy, we think about, healthy food, healthy lifestyle and stuff like that, but she still had a lot of anxiousness, as you were saying. How did that, what am I trying to say? How did that work out? So you wrote this book out of this need you had, or you were trying to find the resources and couldn't find it, so made it yourself. And what was the result? Like, how did that assist her? What did you see?
So it's pretty cool. I mean, being a practitioner and caring for families for, 16 years, I've seen a lot of kids now, even, and more so, honestly, now in the past 5 to 7 years than I saw in the first half of my practice, who had a ton of anxiety or a lot of stress. And more kids now are, have more sensory issues and some emotional issues. And, so I saw that need there. And then when I started to see, it was in my son, I started to see the anxiety that he was having with transitioning from school and more responsibility and having to sit still all day in the environment he was in. That's when I really, as a mom, was like, I got to find more resources. And there really wasn't a lot. Now, for my background, to go backwards, I mean, I grew up in the personal growth world. I mean, I was going to Zig Ziglar at 9. So I have been ingrained in things from Course in Miracles to Zig Ziglar to Tony Robbins. That's just been my life. So in another world outside of practice, I coach and do some of those things. But for me, I knew the tools that had helped me as an adult to undo a lot of patterns that had caused stress and had caused different belief systems, but that had never been chunked down to like a child's level. So we started with right away just affirmations, things he could say every night to change the way he thinks about things, talking about finding his voice. Because a lot of children, when they have anxiety, they're holding in and they don't know what to do with that. And so we do see things like tics or stomach aches and headaches and worry that manifests into the body physically. So we started with drawing pictures and making lists and finding his words and switching words from words of power to words that, create more lack. And all these things that had been taught in the personal growth world for adults, I wish I had learned them as a kid. So we simplified those and started practicing those with our own children. And they grew up doing affirmations before bed. They grew up, using their voice and looking for kindness. If they had fear, looking for the kind people, looking for what was good in the world. And we just practiced all of these techniques. And that pulled him out of a lot of the fear and anxiety that he was having. Couple that with the need to move. And we gave him the foundation to be able to move and got him out of situations where he was sitting for 6 hours a day, because that was a ridiculous thing to ask a 5-year-old to do. So really, it caused me to tap into my inner child, and it caused me to connect with my child and start asking what we innately know as chiropractors is, what does this body need in order to heal and to work, because it's not working right now. And that led into foods and thoughts and things and toxins. And we really started to dive into that. So I basically reversed personal growth for adults and just simplified it to give a foundation for a kid.
Yeah, that's really cool. And what do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Yes.
So you had your own children, and then you were able to share, create a format that's pretty cool, because you can share it with other families and other kids. What do you think is I mean, not to go too, there's a million answers to the next question of, but what do you think? What about why we're in this state with our children, with the next generation? I mean, and I don't mean necessarily the more obvious stuff, like, all the toxins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, because you come from that personal growth world, plus that it's interesting that that's the first book that you created was on that side of things, the affirmations, and that was the work. In terms of that side of things, what do you think is the reason for why we're in the state we're in with our children?
I think it starts with adults. And I think most adults either weren't taught or have forgotten the simple act of kindness. And I think that most people are on such a, I mean, like these darn phones and things like that, we are so out of touch with like connection with people. And I think that we're losing that aspect of our society in a big way as adults. And we are so busy with instantaneous information and wanting things done immediately and not having time to feel bad and not having time to like do the things that fuel our soul and our bodies, that we are on this like fast pace of technology and stuff and instantaneous gratitude. And until we tap back in to realize that like the neighbor down the street or the person sitting with you at the dinner table is the priority, not the ding from the phone, we are in a really dangerous place. Because I just feel that with food being instantaneous and success needing to be instantaneous, and there is no longer the time frame where you're out of touch, where we used to have answering machines and you'd pick it up later, you were present with who you were with. I think all of that on a huge scale has drifted down to where kids don't get to be kids. And we start to tell kids who they are before they ever even know who they are, or before we ever know who they are. We're telling children who to be and how to behave and how to act before they ever even know who they are. And we're not even giving them the chance to experience life because they've got to fit the mold of what's next, because we just don't take time to allow people to develop anymore. And I think the source comes down to slowing the world back down and letting people experience the world versus being these robots that most people right now are on that robotic train of everything that they're told. And it takes, as like a business owner and as a chiropractor and as a mom, I mean, yes, I'm juggling a million things, but if you don't stop to really be present in what you're doing, you miss your life. And I really believe the source of most of what's going on is people aren't present with where they are and what they're doing anymore. And I think that changes everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's profound. I was thinking, you have the four books in the pre-chat. I don't know if you've mentioned all four of them yet, but and I was like, oh, we need a fifth, the aspect of technology. And
there's a little one in there.
Is there? Okay, good. Yeah, because that's such a big thing. It's been on my radar a lot lately too, because it's like food, for example, which we talk a lot about on the Kids Eating Broccoli. It's a lot more straightforward. Mm-hmm. That box cereal with sugar and GMOs and pesticides and all those things in it is horrible for everyone, right?
Yeah.
But the phone, like you picked that up, it's at the same time as all of those things you mentioned, it also gives you access in your pocket to the libraries of the world, which used to be reserved for the very, very few, and the access to any information at your fingertip, communicate with anybody globally at your fingertip. And those are tremendous things. But then, that's the flip side of the difficulties that we're running into. So it's just a complex issue, especially with our kids who are now raised in
tech
with it. I mean, it's 1995, I guess, started Generation Z. And those are the people that have grown up through those formative years with social media, not just tech, but social media.
Yeah.
And
it's not all bad. I mean, I think you're right. Like, it's not all bad. It's just there needs to be a barrier or shutdown time. I mean, there are clearly, for instance, like as a parent and as someone who wants to be present and I don't want to miss a moment with my children. And yes, my practice is important and life's important. And that's one way to get in touch with me, even for friends and socials, socially and things like that. But there are times on it. So for me, Friday to Sunday, that thing functions like a phone, right? Because that's what it's meant to be. I'm in family time, right? So as an adult, can you create accountability for yourself to where you're truly present with those that matter? When you're at the dinner table or you walk in your home at night, is that thing put up? Because it's off, it's off. And there are ways to do that. I mean, we literally have an old flip phone as our house phone. Because if you really want to reach me after 5, call the thing. Because other than that my other one's off, and then it just creates a little bit less of the, nonstop chatter that we tend to have in our lives. Now, you talk about the books, like with kids. Yeah, we have an entire printout on the livewellwarriors.com. There's a do-it-yourself, activity. You can print off a screen time sheet for your kid and log it. And it's screen time versus move time and what's happening more in that child's life, and keep it for yourself, because as an adult, what's happening more in your life? And so that checklist is pretty powerful. The future books will be about tech, and the next one I'm working on is about tech. And it's not all bad. My children learn so much by having access to tech. But if I don't teach them that there's a time for it and that who you're with matters more, then I really worry what our culture is going to be like over the next few years, because we have lost the ability to make relationships that aren't on a screen. And that's that's scary to me, because people matter. And if you don't raise your kids to be present and to understand that, they could miss it. This is one of the first generations that could miss it and be total tech people.
Right.
So there's a balance in it, but I do think that the awareness needs to be higher of how much we hold that darn thing.
Totally. I think that you brought up two different thoughts in my mind. And one of them is, when you mentioned losing the ability to have those relationships, except on the screen, but not only that, even when we are face-to-face in person, we've all had the experience of going to a restaurant or something and looking around and seeing that everybody's on their phone, even though they're across the table. So it actually disrupts our ability to, even if we're just checking it periodically, we're not able to keep our attention focused on the person across from us in the same sort of depth. We aren't able to create those deep relationships, even if we can relate still. Because some people are like, oh yeah, that's exaggerating. What you're saying. Oh, we can't. People know how to still talk to each other, but how to really have those depths of conversations.
There's talking and there's being present, right? Like I can talk and I can do certain things, but if 25% of my brain is really still in the world of whatever was on my phone, or did someone text me, or I wonder if someone liked my silly post, or blah, 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 or watched this podcast or did that. If my 25% of my brain is on that, I am not present. And I really believe that for me as a practitioner, and from what I've seen with people I work with in my practice, when they develop the skill of present time consciousness to be where they are at the moment they are there, healing takes place when you're in an office like a chiropractic office, when your provider is present 100% with what they're doing. When I'm literally with my kid and I'm with my kid, it's just very different than when I'm with my kid and I'm also 20% on that phone, even just halfway with my mind. There is something to being present in what we're doing. And I really find very few people have the attention span to do that anymore. And I think that is a really, really challenging piece of where you look at mental health. That's playing a role in it, because your body can't heal. It can't repair. It is constantly in an adrenaline cortisol pattern that leads to stress. And if you want long-term health, being present in the ability to do fun things, sad things, healing things, meditation by yourself, it's important to be able to be present with what you're doing.
I love how you call it a skill, like a skill to develop, because I think, I spend a lot of time in the world of, ADHD, for lack of a better word, and, we see the diagnosis of that on the rise significantly. That's sort of why I have an attention focus there, just because it's a good portal into sort of the bigger picture of our kids' health situation. But I see it, and now adult ADHD is a thing, right? I mean, 10 years ago there wasn't this thing, and now it's like all over the place, and so it's kind of like, oh yeah, I can't pay attention. Well, that's just me, that's sort of, not to say it's just an excuse. I don't mean to be dismissive completely, but it's certainly deterministically spoken. Like you just have it, and you just can't be present. It's like, you're just deficient. Like, you can't jump as high. So. Right. Yeah. And so it's cool that you're framing it as a skill, because absolutely, we've all had the experience of, well, hopefully many of us have had the experience of, if we do something, practice being present, that we become better able to do that.
I think it's a skill for a lot of adults that we actually probably developed. Mm-hmm. But I do think for this current generation, if we don't teach it to them, because there is so much tech and so much less play and so much stimulation through screen, I don't know if they're going to develop it unless we really help implement it. Because right now the average child is fed garbage, right? Doesn't really develop the skills to emotionally say what they need, put into a classroom at a very young age where they sit for hours now. And we expect 5-year-olds to have the knowledge of 7 and 8-year-olds at this point. And we test them to death in the country. And then they go home and they're on a YouTube, a Fortnite, or a Minecraft, and they're staring at a screen all night. Where's the development that occurs through moving and thinking and communication and, foods, and where is that? And that's one of my pieces with the books, is that I really got sick of trying to teach adults these habits that they missed. So I'm like, forget it. We'll go to the next generation and let's just give them the foundation to do it. Right. And then they will educate their parents, because that if their parents don't get it, go one step deeper, and then they can educate the parent when they're shopping at the store or feeling stressed or at the dinner table. Odds are the kids will teach the parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a age-old, I guess marketing, but they use it for public service things. I can remember being a kid and seeing these little public service commercials between Saturday morning cartoons. About like not drowning your food. That was one. I don't know why that one sticks in my head. And then about brushing your teeth and things like that. Yeah.
Like my parents wore a seatbelt because we were trained at school to go home and say, I would feel a lot more comfortable if you would put that on. That's what they taught us to say. And that's what led to my mother wearing a seatbelt. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm hoping that these kids go to the store and they say, oh, Sweetie created that, or that was GMO. We should probably buy this. But they have the language to be able to say the difference in certain sugars and the difference in protein, the difference in organic versus GMO. And people are telling me all the time, well, kids don't talk that way. I go, well, mine sure do. And their friends sure do, because when they come over, my kids from a young age consistently would go to play dates and say, is that GMO? Well, most of the time the parents had no idea. They go, your kid's asking me if something's GMO. I'm like, oh, let me explain what that is. But I do believe that kids are way smarter than we give them credit for. They just need the language and the words to be able to find how to say certain things. One of the books, it has worrywart in it, and worrywart sits on your shoulder, and he gets bigger when you say negative things to yourself. So my kids literally in the back seat, and their friends now, if one of them says like, oh, I'm just not good at math, one of them will literally say, well, worrywart just got bigger. You could flip that and shrink him. But they get that connection that words and things matter. And it's just that little attention to detail helps give your kids the tools it empowers them to make different choices and use different words.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, because, a lot of the marketplace for trying to help families, have healthier kids is aimed at the parents. And I mean, obviously they're the ones who make the purchasing decisions, and they're the ones who, who consume the media, especially with little kids and so forth. But I mean, because it brings me back to another thing that I was, when we were talking a minute ago, and you were talking about your own practices with your phone and turning it off over the weekend, and how, for those of us, those parents who are interested in trying to really, make a difference, how vital it is to exemplify the different things, And I think there's something to like, okay, well, I'm off my phone, so you should be off your phone. But even a deeper level of, because they obviously watch everything we do. Like they don't care so much what we say most of the time, right? But they certainly are watching everything we do. And so even if you're like, oh, I'm off my phone, but then you're kind of like looking over there, checking it, they can sense the different, your attention is distracted and stuff. So really exempling that as much as, putting your phone down or turning it off.
Oh, it's left at home. Really like it's not in sight.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to do it, do it. And maybe you do it an hour a weekend or 5 minutes. And I don't know, it's up to each individual what they need. If it's in this vicinity of most people, they'll want to touch it. It will come back up. I mean, it literally needs to be left at home or in a spot that's just out of sight, out of mind. Because it is whatever they put in these darn things, they're like magnets to you if they're near you. Yeah, so it's having the discipline to just set it aside. But it matters. It really, really matters. And for a lot of people, they don't notice it till they go on vacation. And if they purposely leave it or purposely never take it out of their condo or hotel room or whatever, when they come back, they start to see that they're like lighter and I didn't even touch it. Right. You got to build some of that into your week. Mm-hmm. That's important, you know?
Yeah. Digital detox is actually a thing,
yes.
you know, like that would have made no sense 10, 15, 20 years ago, but now it's a necessity, just like all the other detox that we need to do. Yeah, that's cool. So so for people who want to find out about the Live Well Warriors, what's the avenue? How do we do that? Like if I want to get those for my kids, what do I do to make that happen?
So you can go to livewellwarriors.com and there's a series of different things you can look through. The do-it-yourself section is awesome. I mean, I'm biased, but it's awesome. And it's a ton of different activities, from shopping lists that your kids can create. There are composting directions, there's recycle directions, there's worksheets for your kids to play with if they want to color, all learning, things like that. There are 52 different affirmations you can literally just print off and do those once a week with your kid. Give them one focus. We do it as a family. So we literally, this is our focus for the week. And some of them are, you know, I am loved. And some of them are, I love trying new foods or things like that. One action step each week. That's a complimentary download. If you love it, you can buy those in an affirmation deck, and you can literally have it in a hard deck. And then there are the books, and there's one book on sustainability, recycling, and the environment. There's one book on Worrywart and the adventures with him and learning to use good, powerful words for yourself. And then there is a book on that encompasses lifestyle. So it looks at the beautiful health of your spine and your nervous system. It dives into food and organic, clean living. It dives into affirmations, and it's got a bit of everything within it, so that you can get a bunch of little tidbits in one book. And so then there's just a flat out affirmation book. So there's a lot of resources on there. And the characters are amazing. And so I hope people download it and just use them. I mean, the do-it-yourself thing alone is tons of activities that you can do and build and do things with. So yeah, the livewellwarriors.com. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. And then there's obviously the website. And then you can reach me too. If you want to reach me, it's at livewellwarriors@gmail.com.
So it's the site, the Live Well Warriors, or just Live Well
Just
Warriors?
Live Well Warriors.
I know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's I think it's really cool that you have the sustainability one in there too. I mean, in a certain sense, that sort of seems obvious. Like, of course, you know, the planet has to be around for us to be healthy. But I think a lot of books or programs in this arena, you know, healthy living, healthy mindset, healthy eating, I don't see a lot that incorporate, you know, healthy respect for your environment, I guess we might call it. So maybe you can just say a little bit why you felt like that was important enough to make a whole book out of that.
I think it's critical. If you're going to talk about food, you got to know where it comes from, and you got to give the world emotional kindness and love. And then you got to give it the physical, and you got to care for the actual physical environment. And I mean, I was 9 years old. I was stressed about, recycling, and loved Rachel Carson's books and dove into all of that. So that's been a passion of mine since I was a kid. And I think that if we don't take care of that, then nothing else really matters. Yeah. I mean, we've got to preserve that. But I just feel like for me, and for what I see with practice members in my office, is that, you know, your foundation is your spine and your nervous system. That's your foundation. But what we do with all these factors that affect us, from environment and sustainability to food to how we think and how we move, all of those pieces are all affecting each one of us. And so those are my core pieces of, if you want to live well and be a warrior, then champion for those things, because it's what fuels you and your life and future generations. And so to me, that's a no-brainer, that you have to include this world we live in and make it a better place in all aspects.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really great. I appreciate, you know, this work you've done. I mean, it sounds like there's quite a hefty bit of material available, you know, in the Live Well Warriors. And that's really awesome, because it's so needed. You know, we all, listeners to the podcast know, you know, we've had a lot of different guests on that talk about, you know, the statistics and the data and how this, all the things about this next generation is expected to live shorter than their parents, for the first time in history. And it's so cool to be able to get a chance to spend some time with you or people like you who are really, like you said, you're a mom, you have your chiropractic business, you do, you mentioned coaching type stuff on this, you've got a lot going on, but you took the time because it was important to create this program, also Live Well Warriors, because, they're the next, right? They're our future.
It's our obligation. If nothing, why would you do anything else? But for me, I want my children to have it better than what we do. And I want them to have less stress, happiness, all the things you want for your kids. But I'm obligated to leave a legacy of some sort in this world, and all of us are. And so whenever my time here is done, you'll know what I stood for. And if that empowers one individual to carry on some form of that legacy, to give and to love and to serve and to leave this world better, then that was time well spent. And so for me, that's the source of where it comes from, is that this legacy of making a difference long term, there's no small contribution by people, and it really all adds up to create this magnificent change. And we need all of us playing as big as we possibly can. And that's what drives me every day to how can I contribute in some way today to make it better. And I think my little warriors at home will carry this message on for quite some time. And so that makes me feel really good inside. And the future's bright if we can do that.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being part of it today.
Honor.
I appreciate it. I think people are going to be able to gain so much value out of it. Tell us what's the future hold for the Live Well Warriors? What's the next phase?
So the next phase, there'll be more books, obviously. And the next phase, we will have an empowerment program to actually help people step by step. So over 52 weeks, you can get action steps so that you're not so overwhelmed with every decision you're trying to make, but literally one little bit better every single day or every single week. And so that platform will be launching hopefully at the end of this year, if not the beginning of next. And that's the next piece for the Live Well Warriors. And then, ultimately, I really believe it should be like a Netflix show or a movie, because why we do not have powerful characters teaching about really cool things like this, I don't know. So down the road, that's going to come.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for being with us today. I appreciate it and taking some of your time, because obviously you got a lot going on. You're a busy person. So thanks for being here and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Hey there. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Kids Eating Broccoli podcast. We appreciate you so much. And if you've enjoyed it, please go to iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or wherever else you listen to podcasts, and rate and review and subscribe to the podcast of the Kids Eating Broccoli podcast. You can also find us on our website at kidseatingbroccoli.com. We're on Facebook at Kids Eating Broccoli. So you can find us in any of those places to stay up to date with what we're up to. You can go and sign up for our mailing list on the website to get updates sent directly to your inbox. And this episode has been brought to you by HempWorks CBD oil. HempWorks CBD oil is some of the purest, most potent, and trusted brands on the marketplace. It's made from organically grown, U.S. grown hemp. It's extracted with a CO2 process, so solvent-free. And every batch is third-party independently tested, and the independent testing results are posted right on their website. You can find out more about hemp oil or HempWorks CBD oil or their other CBD products by going to drellisorcbd.com. That is drellisorcbd.com. And you can find out everything you need there. You can order some, and you can even take advantage of their 60-day empty bottle money-back guarantee. All right, we will see you next time.